Thank you very much, Mary. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. I mean, look at this. Amazing, huh? You would think it's the golden age of knowledge work. What a better place, take it in, than a former imperial palace to think about the fate of knowledge work. And it's really suited because I actually want to make the point that knowledge work, or more precisely, a certain kind of knowledge work, the way we've understood and practiced it over the last 50 years, is going the way of the Habsburg, or the Bourbons, or the Savoia, if you want. To put it bluntly, it's dead. And no, it's not AI that killed it. It's actually been ill for a long time. But don't worry, it's not going to be all doom and gloom. At the end, I want to argue that this might be good news. But let me start with a little story, since we're here. How many of you here in the room have teenage children? Great. I have two. I'm sure you'll agree with me. It is, how shall we put it, a humbling experience. But it does have its moments of genuine bliss. Like, for example, the opportunity to witness your children discover the world of work. And I had one such opportunity in a place similar to this a few months ago. My son Pietro is 16 and he's an aspiring historian. And he had the good fortune of landing an internship at the Château de Versailles in the conservation department. And I had the good fortune of being able to rent a studio and decamp with him there for a couple of weeks. So for this time, during the day, I did my knowledge work from home, and he went off to the palace to do his, and then we would meet in the evening and for a walk and for dinner. And on one of these evenings, we were walking on one of the courtyards in front of the chateau, and man, this boy was so alive. And I thought I'd ask him a question that I love asking people when I visit their workplace. What do you see? What do you see that I cannot see because I'm a visitor, but it's obvious to you because you work here? And he thought about it for a second and he said, people lived here. And then he paused and said, and they still do. People still live here. I said, what do you mean? And he said, you see, when you're a visitor, it's easy to, see this massive enterprise that needs to be secured, that needs to be operated, that needs to be maintained, that costs the government a lot of money, or to see this impressive monument, the symbol of a powerful culture of the past. And he showed me his badge, and it does say Musée de Versailles. And he told me, but that's not what we call it. We call it la maison. It's a home. People lived here. Certain people lived here. Kings and queens and courtesans and maids. And it meant something to live in this place. And it did something to them and to their relationships with each other and with the people outside. And now there's lots of visitors, but some people still live here. The scholars, the professionals, the curators. And it means something to work here. It makes you part of something, to work in this place, for this place, every day. And I was so moved by that idea. And I thought, I didn't say this, because I know better than to say that kind of thing to your teenage son, but I did think it. I have spent 20 years looking at organizations exactly that way, and wondering, why is it so difficult to notice that people live here? Why do we forget? When we look at organizations, often we look at a really complex machine that needs to be run smoothly. Or sometimes we look at them as a kind of monument, the manifestation of the vision, of the values of a founder, of an executive team. And once you look at them that way, then it's easy to ask instrumental questions. Things like, are they efficient? Are they consistent? Are they productive? Do people feel proud? But once you look at them as a maison, as a home, then you start asking yourself a different set of questions, humanistic questions. Is it safe? Is it hospitable? Who lives here? How do they live? Do they feel close? Do they feel free? And you see, if you look at the organizations where knowledge workers live these days, instrumentally, they are doing great. Efficient, most, consistent, many, productive, oh yeah, proud too. But if you look at them humanistically, then the picture is a little bit less bright. I mean, safe, for some more than others. Hospitable, it depends. There's a lot more visitors than residents at most offices on any given day. These days, work is ever more precarious. And then there's the rise of what I call the workplace sorrow in 3Ds. People are distressed, distracted, disconnected. You know, the truth is, leaders of knowledge organizations of the past 50 years have been a lot better at building monumental machines than they have been at building human-friendly maisons. Just like the leaders who built this. And you and I, my friends, have not just lived through the golden age of knowledge work. We've lived in the golden cage of knowledge work. And I think one of the problems is the way we've understood and practiced knowledge work and management and leadership and all such concepts that lump together. And we've done it in a way that systematically favors the mechanical, the instrumental, over the organic, the humanistic, that lets the latter be subordinate, be exploited by the former. We are much more likely to be concerned about efficiency, about productivity, about things like that than we are about vitality, about inclusion, about freedom. And you see, that's why I say that knowledge work is dead. Because now we realize that, you know, even when we share those humanistic, even when we address those humanistic concerns, we often do it through an instrumental lens. Let's keep people more comfortable. Let's make our culture more congenial so that we can all be more productive. That is humanism of convenience. That is humanism light. And of course, machines now are going to be able to do all that work of crunching data, running processes, appeasing people much better, faster, cheaper than any of us can. And I think many of us worry about being replaced by machines because knowledge work has been mechanical all along. And we've been doing the work of machines inside bigger machines, and the realization is a shock. But it might be a helpful shock because it's forcing us to ask the questions, what work could we be doing instead? What is the work? And I think the work is bringing work and workplaces to life, starting by the realization that people live here. And one of the key findings in my research is that some people still live well in organizations that serve as a kind of home. People are attracted to those organizations. People are engaged in those organizations. Sometimes people remain committed to those organizations even long after they have left. And what do the leaders of those organizations do? They are homemakers. They constantly try to balance instrumental and humanistic imperatives. Yes, they do worry about getting stuff done efficiently and productively, but they also care about helping people grow freely. Now, they may not promise loyalty, but they do promise learning. And more recently, I've been looking at what does it take to keep the promise of learning. And if you're interested in the details, I encourage you to look out for the January issue of the Harvard Business Review. There's a whole article in there, but here's the upshot. Most leaders favor instrumental learning, the kind of learning that makes you indeed more productive in your organization, and that works really well when people need more alignment. Now, some leaders favor humanistic learning. The kind of learning that makes you more conscious of who you are, more courageous to do something different, which is great when people need to be empowered to innovate. You see, because instrumental learning helps us fit. It makes us converge to a norm. And humanistic learning sets us free. It helps us diverge from a norm. But then there are a few leaders who try to balance the two, which is the hardest thing. And it really works well if your primary purpose is inclusion. And these are leaders who are very serious about the idea of building communities as much as machines. And you can't have a community unless people feel that they can belong without losing themselves. And I think what these findings do is they help us think about why is it that our organizations are more and more efficient but still struggle mightily with innovation and with inclusion? Well, because we have let the humanistic be subordinated to the instrumental in leadership and learning far too long. And we're getting the realization that actually the problem is no longer the productivity of knowledge. The problem is the purpose of learning. And if we want to make that shift, we need to change the way we lead. And if we want to change the way we lead, we need to change the way we learn. So, there's my idea. People live here. We live here in this knowledge economy. And with or without AI, it will not be a good home if it only makes us more productive and proud. To be a good home, it also has to help us be closer to each other and sets us free at the same time. Thank you very much.